This episode is proudly sponsored by Amber L. Contact us today to learn how you can be a part of the vibration experience. Good evening and welcome to Vibration, where we empower individuals to speak their distinct truth, passions, and personal message on a global online stage. I'm your host, Michelle McDonald, passionate foodie, author, and entrepreneur. And tonight we are diving into our theme, which is Bahamian roots, history, and culture, with our topic, Bahamian bush medicine, a rich source of wellness and history. With our guest speaker tonight, who is Miss Mykah Smith, who originates from a long line of medicine makers from the Bluff Cat Island in the Bahamas, which means that it's safe to say she has bush medicine and herbology in her blood. Mykah, a Caribbean herbalist, began her journey into herbalism in 2016 after a personal experience where an herbal recipe became her saving grace. She was experiencing severe cramps, and her mom brewed a few plants into a mix that removed the pain immediately. This became constant, with brews being sent abroad to Mykah in Tennessee during her schooling. Full of curiosity, Mykah inquired with her family and was advised to connect with her oldest aunt, affectionately called Grammy, for more insight. During her trips to Cat Island with her aunt, Mykah gained first-hand insight on bush medicine. Yet, despite her knowledge, her tenacity made her seek more. She persevered, attaining certificates in phytochemistry, botany, materia medica, and a vast array of other herbology classes. Using this in-depth information and Caribbean plants as one of her main ingredients, Mykah created a line of products under her company, Last Island Gal, in spring 2021. This connected as an extension of her strong belief in helping others. Beyond plants, Mykah is intrigued by the beliefs and cultures around bush medicine. With her undergrad in sociology from Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee, she finds the socio-cultural context and experiences of bush medicine to be remarkably beautiful. This also includes the amazing knowledge, power of plants, and the people who hold this knowledge in its fullness. Mykah has also practiced yoga for 8 years and is a yoga instructor of 5 years in New Providence, Bahamas. Mykah, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yes, me too. And the thing is, there are so many persons that wanted to hear about this topic. They're eager to learn more. And I think one of the best things about it is they appreciate someone who values it to the point that you have. You have done so many studies and truly invested into this to let us know that this is truly a passion of yours. I believe we're having some technical difficulties.
Yes. Hopefully no more.
So Mykah, you are a woman of wellness and spirituality. And your business, Last Island Gal, is just an extension of that. Tell us why it was important for you to establish this company and why it's so sacred to you.
Well, establishing the company was never my primary goal. My primary goal was to raise the awareness and the importance and cultivate the passion in my generation for this fading art form. I consider it. It's just so beautiful. And so I started just all the information that I found, whether it was about a particular plant or whether it was about like the historical aspects of it. I was just sharing that information. And then people started asking me, so do you have products? Do you have this? And I'm like, no, it's just like a side thing that I'm doing just to dispense this information that I'm learning as I go along. And then it quickly turned into like people asking me to make them different brews and stuff. So it was to the point where I was still living at home, and I was like boiling stuff all the time and giving brews away. And my mom was like, "You realize that's gas and water, right?" She's like, "You need to charge something for it." So then I came into the second phase of, no, I'm not going to charge people. I'm going to educate them. So like, I'd be like, give me $25. I'll come to your house and tell you like what plants you have in your yard, how you can use
Nice.
them, how you can learn to identify them. Totally uninterested. People were not interested. They just wanted me to make it and sell it. So I slowly started doing that. And it just kind of transformed into a full-fledged business. But I hold true to the way my ancestors did it. They never did it for any kind of monetary gain. They did it to help the community. And so I really hold that value dear to my heart. And it's so sacred to me because as people of African descent, people of indigenous, Arawak Indian descent, our tradition is an oral tradition. And so
Mhm.
to impart this knowledge or to even receive this knowledge, it takes time and it takes patience and it
Yeah.
takes sitting at the feet of your elders and being willing to learn and, being humble and just honoring them and recognizing like these people have a wealth of knowledge that if we don't sit down, take time to honor them, to sit at their feet, to learn and to listen, it's going to be gone forever.
Mhm.
When an oral tradition dies, so in a lot of African tribes, they had these individuals called griots, like the Haitian food. But these people were actually the keepers of knowledge. So they were the ones who were responsible for transmitting social norms, cultural practices through oral tradition. And so they held this knowledge and they would find someone in the next generation who they thought possessed or who came from their lineage, and they would be their apprentice from the time they were like 12 or 13 up until that person died, and then they would be ready to take over that responsibility of passing on socio and cultural knowledge to to the people in their community so that could be preserved. And so I think that for me, it's so sacred because it requires me to sit and learn and recognize that my elders do hold this wisdom, and I have to be humble enough and patient enough. Because like sometimes when old people telling you stuff, they take a long time to get to it. And like our generation is such a microwave generation, like we want to know right now and we
Very
need to right now.
instant.
Right. And that's just not the way this ain't not how it goes. You have to be willing to take the time to sit and to listen. And that's what I did. And so it just gave me such and I think it also transmits the passion, right? It
Mhm.
transmits you hear the stories of how your granddad made a brew for somebody and they had twins, or, you hear these stories and
Mhm.
pride, like my mom would always tell me how proud my grandfather was when he would see these kids, or, how proud my grandmother would be when she knew she helped someone, or like
Aw.
literally, my Grammy helped someone who had stage 4 cancer based on a plant that she
Mhm.
dreamt about. So, there are just all these nuances that point to it being more than something that's in this physical realm. Like, obviously, it has to have some kind of spiritual link because, you have people who dream about plants and then go outside and find them exactly where the person in the dream told them. Or you have
Mhm.
somebody bring you this plant and tell you take it to this person, and then you find out like it's exactly what they needed, And so it's just, to me, it's so sacred because of all of these things, because it takes time, because it takes honoring my elders, because it takes recognizing that a lot of times this knowledge is going to come from the great beyond, So like, yeah, that's why I think it's just so sacred and so important.
Thank you for that, Micah. Honestly, the more you spoke, the more we know just how committed you are to your personal mantra of helping others and it shows that you understand the layers of all of this. This is not just about information for you. And as you stated, it's not just about the monetary value. You understand where it comes from. You are taking it upon yourself to carry it on. And that is very, very admirable, especially in your generation, because there's so much value to it from a historical level, spiritual, our heritage, our culture, like all of this wrapped up in one. And the thing is, you totally get it. So thank you so much for that.
I still have a lot to learn, but there's always more to learn.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a good thing to have, being someone who knows that learning is a continuous process. And as you stated, learning bush medicine is one of those things. You're going to learn some stuff this week and, 5 months from now, and then 2 years from now, you're going to surprise yourself and learn that there's even more. And with the generation that is passing this on, that is just a part of the process,
Indeed.
So you've already touched on this, just how much this links to the Bahamas itself. And of course, there are other cultures involved. You have spoken on the benefits of being able to, how should I say, keep this within the community, right? Helping people to know that this is something that has to be passed on. Can you let us know just how imperative it is that not only within you and others who may be thinking about getting into herbology, but in understanding just how important it is to continue to pass this on and sustain this within our culture?
So I think that in our quest to become a modern society, we think the things that our ancestors did are primitive, or we think that there is a more efficient way, right? So we have this very colonialized view of what wellness is. We have this very colonialized view of what food is, what culture is, and what we should hold important. And I think the first step in the thing that makes bush medicine so important, I think, is it forces you to decolonialize your mind about what you think wellness and healing and all of this stuff looks like. The scientific method was introduced, in the late 1800s, and it totally transformed the face. So they're like, oh yeah, these people may have been using these herbs forever, but if we can't do it like this and replicate it over and over and over again and get the same results, then we don't see it as valid. Aside from that, our ancestors were colonialized, and they, the English and the Spanish and the Portuguese and all of these people who conquered, and passed through and had ownership of the Bahamas, all of these people had one goal in mind: to separate us so much from our culture that they could brainwash us into being and becoming and having these practices that they wanted us to have. And so the importance of it is to understand that science is just catching up to our ancestors. People say you have to mix bush in 3s and 5s in odd numbers. But scientifically, when you look at the percentage of a certain phytochemical, let's take, for example, gallic acid. It's a phytochemical that's good for cardiovascular health. You can find it in almond leaves and avocado leaves, and in several other plants.
Okay.
So let's say you have 66% gallic acid in almond leaf, and then 33% in the avocado leaf. When you put that together, you get almost 100% gallic acid. And so what that means is the potency of it, right? They did this and this practice comes from Aubert. So it's a spiritual practice, because Aubert believes in odd numbers, combining things in odd numbers, odd number days. All of these things are considered sacred. And so even though that was a spiritual practice, now science is finding out that this is valid in the way that they did this because of the phytochemical composition in different plants. And so we have to remember that even though science didn't lead our ancestors, God did. And he created those plants. And so for me, returning to bush medicine and encouraging people to do the same and to change the way that they view their health and their wellness, I think that's important. It's going to give us more respect for our culture. It's going to give us more respect for our elders, which is something I feel like my generation and the generation after me lacks in a crazy way. Like, I see people talk to old people in a way that I'm just like, what? Like, how can you speak to someone that old in that manner? And so for me, there are multiple layers to it. It's understanding, like, we always been knowing, our ancestors been knowing, right? And then aside from that, it's a level of respect that it gives you for your culture. Yes. It helps you to honor it in a way, right? And I am a firm believer in connecting to the earth, because you are made of dirt and that's what you're going to return to. But also all of your ancestors who came before you live in this, their body fragments are in this same earth. And so to understand, like, as I go out and I harvest these plants, for me, bush medicine is a way for me to connect to my ancestors through space and time. Like, I told you the story of how I met my great-great-grandmother in my dream. Right? She came to me and she was imparting all of this knowledge to me as I slept. And I would have never had this relationship if I didn't take up the very strong calling that I had. And so for me, I've had the experience of meeting people who I would have never had the chance to meet. I've been able to build relationships across space and time and have knowledge imparted to me across space and time, all because of these plants. And so for me, it's like, that makes me even more proud to be Bahamian, to know, like,
love it.
Walk outside, grab some plants, and help somebody kick their diabetes pills, kick their hypertension pills, kick their arthritis pills. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy to think that, and to think that people don't value that and think it's just something crazy that their Grammy making them do. And it's like, that is, to me, my Grammy brewing me something and giving me that. That is the ultimate testament of her love for me.
Yes.
And so why do I feel like I want to cry? I just like, it's just so valuable. It's so valuable. And I think I appreciate the rise of interest of, like, Bahamians in herbology and all this, and like herbalism and stuff. But it always breaks my heart a little bit to see, like, they really out here importing herbs. Like, you're really out here importing herbs when we have all this stuff around us, just waiting to be used. And it's, sorry, I get a little.
It's okay. We can tell how passionate you are about it. It truly touches your soul, and that says a lot. It says a lot about your brand. It says a lot about the work that goes behind it. And you mentioned all of those persons that you help through what you do. You changed lives, and you are able to inspire others as well to get into this. And you really, really touched on why it is so connected to who we are as Bahamians and to this country. So thank you for that. Don't worry about being emotional. We understand that this is a deep part of who you are.
I feel as though if we could raise this knowledge and as a country put this out there, like just how America has a large herb export industry, like we could create that industry here. You know what I mean? Instead of like all these people who make like different body products and body care products, instead of them importing all of this stuff from out of the country, like they can, incorporate these plants in their products as well. And like we can, as a country, be producing products that are so unique and so tailored to the Caribbean, that can spread across the world. And so I feel as though like there's so much potential, like just waiting to be revealed.
Yes. And you put it out there now, you can get people's minds going. We know that innovation is everywhere. So who knows? could be right around the corner. That is a great agribusiness idea. So, of course, I want to extend a congratulations to you for your eyewitness feature. You were fabulous in the spotlight. And here you mentioned that inflammation is one of the primary sources of disease throughout the body, and how bush medicine is one of the most natural and local ways that we can reduce that. Share with us some of the main plants that are involved in Bahamian bush medicine and that have healthy benefits for systems throughout our body.
Okay, so my top plant for the immune system and inflammation, and see sorry, I'm gonna go off on a side tangent. So for me, I think this may touch on another question that we had, but it's so important to take your time with plants, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say you just learn how to identify a certain plant today. Take time, learn that plant, try that plant by itself, see what it tastes like, see what happens when you put it in oil, see what happens when you brew it in water. How long should you brew it? Do you just heat some water and pour it over? How does that make you feel? Do you boil it for like 2 hours? How does that make you feel? And take your time to learn these plants and get a flavor profile and understanding of them, because you can have one plant that works for 6 or 7 body systems. So you have like gale of wind, right? Gale of wind is a common weed that pretty much grows everywhere. In Ayurvedic medicine, they call it seed underleaf. So when you flip it over, you'll find like little seeds underneath, little oval shaped.
I know what you mean. Yes.
Yeah, little oval shaped leaves.
Yes, yes.
And this is so amazing for your immune system. It's immunostimulating, which means it boosts your immune system, tells your white blood cells like, hey, time to get to work. And then it also fortifies your cells. So it actually helps protect the cell membrane so viruses and infections can't enter. Aside from that, it's very good for your renal system. Chinese medicine, they call it stone breaker because it can actually break up and dissolve kidney stones and gallbladder stones. Aside from that, because of the viral protection, it's good for sexually transmitted diseases as well. And so like people who have herpes and are on like medications like Valtrax or Aclavir, this is a really good like plant that you can drink daily that will help. It's also good for the liver. It actually it can help with liver cell regeneration.
Wow.
And so, you know, it's important to take your time so you can fully understand a plant. Because let's say I have someone who's coming, they have gallstones, they also have some kind of what did I say? They also have some, you know, so they want something for immunity. I can, you know, it doesn't take a brew of 15 plants to make a difference. Just intentionally and carefully selected, you know, 3 to 5. And so when you understand, and then it's more than just understanding. So a lot of plants are like, you hear antioxidant. So what happens is in our day-to-day lives, our cells oxidize, and we have these things called free radicals that have been linked to cancer and all kinds of like cell mutation and breakdown. And so you have some plants that just give you antioxidants upon taking them, but then you have other plants that they call it like endo, like means your body produces it itself. So you have some plants that will stimulate this production of antioxidants by your body versus, so over time you wouldn't have to be taking something over and over and over again, because now this plant, you've had it enough to where your body now is producing it on its own. And so so like I would say my top 3 plants that I would give to anyone without feeling worried, because I know we talked about that. Mango leaf is so good for the reproductive system, particularly balancing hormones.
Very important. Very
Right.
important.
So it's amazing for the endocrine system, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also good for diabetes. It helps to
Mm.
normalize blood glucose levels, but it's also good for hypertension. And when mixed with Gale of Wind, it's the best thing to break up kidney stones. And so it's like all of these plants, they have all of these wonderful benefits all together, you know? So even if you want to start, you know, get a little bit into bush medicine, you don't have to start off knowing like 3,000 plants. Just know 5 or 6 plants very well. You know, that's all it takes to get yourself started. Just start, you know. I would say the hardest thing is identifying the plants.
Mm-hmm.
So I would recommend, like, don't just go and pick something if you are unsure. Like, find someone who knows. So like, for me, I had the privilege of being able to check with my Grammy. So, like, I'd be, like, in the bush rummaging around, and I'd be saying, is this the right one? And she'd be like, no, you remember you need to look for this, this, and this. And so, you know, it's just, like, it's a constant. It's a constant. But I would always recommend, like, you drink it first. Like, just don't pop up and be like, oh, I'm gonna start making plant. No, you drink it first, see how it impacts your body, the benefits, and you can say to people, for me, I can say, I know that Rousticome works because I took it and it eliminated my cramps, you know? Or I know Gale of Wind works because I knew someone who had COVID and it helped them get over it faster. You know, so you want to, or I had a cold once and it made me feel better, or my Grammys, you know, so you always want to be able to recognize it in your own body. And it's just like when I teach yoga, I would never teach a sequence that I haven't practiced, because the only way that I can give effective instruction and give a good testimonial about how it's going to feel in your body is if I've tried it. And so it's the same with plants. Like, you want to take your time and learn them and again, the flavor profile. So you can be like, you know, bitter lives here, it's going to be awful. Or like, you know, the taste isn't that bad. You know, so you just want to make sure that you're comfortable with the plant before you start dispensing it to other people.
Thank you for that, Mike. I think that was a very important topic because people may not realize this, but different bush medicines have different textures. And a big example of that is when my mom had given me some love vine to taste, and it was sticky, stretchy, thick. I was like, wow, because before that, I was more familiar with like aloe vera, which was different. It was more of like a gel, like an actual piece of gel that you can look at and you can touch and you can feel. And, you know, that in comparison to like fever grass, totally different. So, you know, you can't just expect to like boil the leaf, boil the plant, and it's like, okay, these are all going to come out great. They're all just going to be like light, refreshing, easy to drink. It's like, that's not how it works, you know?
Yeah.
And so with your top 3, are you saying that it's the mango leaf, the stone breaker, and then the gale of wind?
So no, the mango leaf, the gale of wind, and then, oh, sorry, I was supposed to give one more. And then also Spanish thyme.
Ah, ooh, I know where to find that. I'm interested to hear what Spanish thyme does.
So Spanish thyme is really good for your reproductive system as well. And this is something, so when I work with ladies who have PCOS, if they know that they have some liver issue, there are certain herbs that I would swap out and I would put in Spanish thyme, because it has no damaging effect on the liver, and it's very good for the reproductive system. Aside from that, it's good for the respiratory system, clearing up coughs and colds and sore throats. So, you know, like the leaf is so it's a kind of like, they call it kind of borage, but the leaves are kind of thick.
Yes.
And so you can add this to like smoothies and juices and that kind of stuff. I like to make a pesto out of it.
Ooh, yeah, that should be good.
Yeah, it's delicious. It's really, really good. And so, yeah, it's just, those are my top 3 safe herbs. But yeah, those are really good herbs. And you mentioned the sliminess of the
Love vine.
of the love vine, and that's because it has this phytochemical called sopatin. So
Mm.
within that is like kind of like what it sounds like. It's kind of soapy. And so it's like gooey, and like you have a lot of herbs that are like that. A lot of cactus plants are like that. So that's why
Mm.
aloe
True.
is like that. But that's also that chemical or that phytochemical is exceptionally good for your heart
Oh,
because it helps
interesting.
repair the arteries.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. So, firstly, I'm definitely going to look at Spanish thyme differently now. Before, I was like, okay, I'm going to use it to season up my meats, my food, you
But I
know.
mean, but that's good because once you're ingesting it, right? So
Hmm.
the thing is, like, these things are also food, right? So like
Yes.
you have South Asian cultures that have been making like salads out of young mango leaves for centuries, right?
Mm.
They use it as an alternative to lettuce. And so
Wow.
that's why also I go back to we have to decolonize our mind about what food is. Because I'll tell a Bahamian that I ain't eating no mango leaf, and they would go to
Hmm.
the store and buy the lettuce. And so, and when you look at the composition of mango leaf, the nutritional value is going to be way higher in the mango leaves than you getting with that iceberg lettuce, baby.
Oh, yeah, especially iceberg.
That's why I picked that one. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. I like that change of perspective because, as you stated, it's not just about brewing it. It's really just about incorporating it in a way that it's a part of your daily lifestyle. Like, how best can you fit this in where you can have it more often so you can get more of the natural benefits of it? So, you taking the mango leaf, as you stated, creating it into something that you can have in a salad or some other form into your meal, like it really changes how people understand, as you stated, what food is and even what bush medicine is.
And also, I forgot to, mango leaves are really good for inflammation. So we talked about that. They have a phytochemical called mangferin. So Mangferin.
Okay.
And this is the main component in reducing inflammation in the body, as far as
Mm.
mango leaves are concerned. And obviously, based on the name, you can tell you can only find it in mango leaves. But it's just even just like going online and googling like chemical makeup of this plant, you can learn so much about it. I mean, and like we talked about this earlier, like, so I have my master's, so I understand how to read an academic journal article. But then when it's outside of your discipline, you get all this new language. So it just takes some time, some extra Google searches. Maybe you got to double down on a Google search because you search up one word and you're like, I am still confused.
So true, especially those scientific terms.
Right. So it just takes some time and some effort. And I think that, it's worth learning. And for me, I value the heritage and the culture. And I did like talk about the scientific method earlier, but I am a woman of science. So the scientific method is important to me. But I also understand that that is the colonizer's way. And I think it's really important, especially if you want to exist in this modern day and age, you have to have the fine like balance, right? So I tell people
Mhm.
before you come to me for a consultation, go to your doctor.
Yeah.
Have them tell you what's going on. Have them prescribe you medication and then come to me and we'll figure it out because now I have all of the information that I need to effectively help you. And so I value doctors. I value their work and their insight, but I do not value, or I shouldn't say I don't, but I have serious qualms with the pharmaceutical industry, especially when you're going to tell me I can't drink these plants because something got happened to my liver, and then you're giving me 30,000 pills and the side effect is death. How does that add up? People having kidney failure, liver failure, You know, you take one pill, now you have migraines. You take another pill, now you shaking. It doesn't add up. And for me, I like herbs because the side effects of herbs, you know what happens? Something else in your body is now working better. The most that people have, it may be like dry mouth based on, you know, the makeup of a brew, or maybe they get some stomach cramps because it's too strong. But as far as like, you know, and then you have proper practices for bush medicine. So let's say somebody comes to me now and gets a brew. I'm not selling them another brew for another 2 weeks, because you need to give yourself 2 weeks to process it through your body. Because again, you know, these plants come from the environment, and they have beneficial phytochemicals, but they also have some like, so within all of the phytochemicals, you have these different classes, and you have some called alkaloids. Now, some alkaloids are very damaging to the liver and to the kidneys, but the plants are super beneficial. So in the US, they have what they call Schedule 20 herbs that herbalists are required to keep locked in a cabinet. So I have developed like my own Bahamian version of Schedule 20 herbs that I wouldn't like give to anyone with liver issues, or I wouldn't give for more than like a 2-week period, and I wouldn't put more than a certain amount based on somebody's body weight.
Okay.
And so it's like, again, right? And that's where you have to take the time to learn. Because I know we talked about this too, and we know that people could be mad, but I don't work with Cerecy at all. Because the alkaloids in there go crazy on your liver and kidneys. And so, you know, it's just like kind of working through and figuring out, and just being open to doing the hard work to learn, because our way is not the colonizers' way, and we're not in North America with the lavender and the plantain and the, you know, all these, you know, plants that people are always, the chamomile and the oat straw. Like, we don't have that at our disposal. So it's not what the courses online and the, you know, everything that the information that people are sharing, it's not built around that. And usually when there's a lot of information on a specific herb, it's because some foreign place has been like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, that's why soursop's so on and popping now, right? Like, because now people are realizing this is 10 times better than chemo if you use it. Now, I'm a firm believer in, if it's past a certain point, then medical pharmaceutical intervention is necessary. I'm a firm believer in like, if like surgeries that are needed. You know, I've had to have a biopsy before. I was totally against it because I had to have some of my lymph nodes taken out. But for me, it's like, I understand how far it can take me and when I need to go past that point. And so this is why it's so important to incorporate it before there's an issue, right? Because prevention is always better than cure. So you want to incorporate bush medicine into your daily life, into your food, into all these things, so that you can actually have the capacity to provide yourself with preventative care and live a full life. You are making these decisions proactively instead of making them retro. So it's really important to think about it in those terms too, because there is a certain point where it can't help you.
Yes. And I think that's very important to put out there. It's kind of understanding limitations, as you stated, listening to your doctor, really getting a full perspective of everything that's going on in your body right now, and knowing when you need to make a different step, you know, when you have to do something differently. Now, we do have 2 questions in the chat, so I'm just going to pop these in. The first one is from Rain Thompson, and so she says, good night, Michelle and Mykah. What are the healing properties of fever grass?
Okay, so fever grass is good for the immune system. It's an expungent, so that means it clears mucus out of the respiratory tract. It is also good for inflammation, just general inflammation in the body. It's also good for cooling the blood. So the fever grass, that's where it got its name. So it's good for fevers and infections. And and it just tastes good.
Hey, let's throw that in there. It tastes good.
Tastes good, smell good.
That's important. Excellent. Thank you so much, Rain. I hope that that answered your questions. If you have any more, let us know. And next up is Anika Thompson. Hi, Michelle. Mykah, what are the benefits of moringa?
So moringa has a lot of different benefits based on the part of the plant that you're using and your extraction method. So you have some phytochemicals that are water soluble, so they can come out in an aqueous extraction, so like boiling it, infusing it. But then you have some phytochemicals that are only fat soluble, so you have to infuse it in oil or extract the oil from the plant itself. And then you have some that you can only extract with ethanol, so you need to use some kind of grain alcohol to extract. So when we speak about moringa flowers, it's been used for centuries in Ayurvedic medicine for mothers who have trouble producing breast milk. So it actually increases the flow of breast milk in mothers, and it also helps to increase healing throughout the mother's body. And it's safe for baby. So you can drink this even as you're obviously as you're breastfeeding, because it's safe for the baby. When it comes to the leaves, it's good for the immune system. You can make a leaf powder that's super rich in iron. Has a little spicy taste to it though, the leaf powder. You can boil the leaves, drink it as a tea for just overall well-being, but it's also good for diabetes and hypertension. Bark extracts with ethanol are good for wounds. What else? And then certain parts, like the root parts, are also good for like coughs and colds. So it just depends on the part of the plant, because each part of the plant carries different phytochemicals and in different percentages.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. Because the thing is, there was a time, I remember in 2019, I went to a trade expo, and this lady had a booth that featured so many different ways to consume moringa. And I was really surprised by it. She had the fresh one so that if you wanted to try it and taste it, she had the powders, she had drinks, she had other applications. And I was truly blown away, because at that time, I think it was almost like the dawn of moringa kind of like coming out, and people were more familiar with it.
I forgot about that. 1 second.
No problem. So everyone, thank you so much for your questions. Keep them coming. We want to help you out as much as possible. Mykah has all of this information that she wants to share. Remember, her guiding light is helping others. So you can keep those coming. So Rain said, thank you. And Anika also said, thank you for your response. So yeah,
you're welcome, ladies. My pleasure.
These people
Nobody's listening to me talk about plants this much.
Yes, girl. They love it. Love it. And so, yeah, so it was very surprising to me, because this was before the time of people trying the seeds. And it gives you that effect of like, before you eat the seed, your taste buds seem to be like normal. And then when you eat the seed, it's like everything tastes really sweet. So it's like, what is that about? Because it's so weird, but it's also like so intense.
Yeah, it's just the way, it's just the flavor. Like, again, remember I told you it's about getting comfortable with the flavors, because the flavors of young moringa. So I'm always going to go back to Ayurvedic medicine, because of yoga. Yoga and Ayurveda are both Indian traditions that go hand in hand, because basically in Ayurvedic medicine and yoga, you have a specific body type, or what they call a dosha. And so this body type determines the style of yoga you do, the herbs and the food that you eat for the rest of your life. So like Ayurvedic doctors will put you on a regimen of yoga, of breath work, of meditation, but as well as of food, of herbs. And these things are supposed to support your specific dosha or body type. And so I go back to that a lot, because it is a subtropical environment. And they have been doing this for centuries. So I build a lot of my knowledge on Ayurvedic medicine and African traditional medicine. So those are my two main drawing points. Sorry, I got sidetracked.
No worries. Thank you so much for that. And I'm sure a lot of people had that question as well. They're like, I tried the seed. What is happening?
Yeah, the
This seems
seed. So yeah, it's
unnatural.
just like the different flavor profiles because so you can actually take the very, very young moringa pods like before they get big. So when they're still like small and green, and you can prepare them like you would string beans
Wow.
because the taste
Yes.
is not
Yes.
as sweet as when it gets older. It's the same like with breadfruit. If you let
Mm,
breadfruit get really ripe, it gets very sweet and almost tastes like
it
sauce.
does. Yes. And it smells like that fragrance is incredible. I love when my breadfruit is like super, super ripe. Like my kitchen smells amazing.
Yeah, so it just as plants mature, the phytochemicals in them change, which changes the flavor profile. So that's why like if you pick like really really young leaves, sometimes you'll find that they're very bitter. So a lot of times like when my Grammy was teaching me, she'd say don't ever get the young leaves because they're either going to be bitter or poison. So you have some plants
Oh,
like if the leaf isn't mature enough, similar to like ackee, if you eat it before it opens, it's poison.
yes.
So they're like certain plants. Um, if the leaves are too young, they can either be poison or cause a lot of stomach cramps or be just extremely bitter and not even have the proper development of the phytochemical to be helpful. So you just drank something awful for no reason.
Yeah, don't want that. You don't want that. So thank you for that, Micah, because I think it was definitely important to be able to say that not all plants and leaves are the same, right? So someone may be getting excited right now, they're motivated. I want to get started into bush medicine. I can look outside and I see quite a variety. But as you stated, you have to choose your leaves and your plants carefully. They're not all one in the same. And you've already stated two of the ways that we have to be mindful of the plants that we choose. Is it possible you can give us one more thing that we have to keep in mind when it comes to acquiring bush medicine?
You never want to get bush from a high traffic area. So the
Mm,
roadside where people drive, spit, pee, there are a lot of dogs in the area. You never want to get plants from those areas. Also, you want to avoid any plant that has any sign of a bug bite. So if you pick in some plants, and you see like there's a bug bite on it or the plant doesn't look well, it has any black spots or anything, those are not plants that you want to use because of the way that contamination works in the body system. So I mean everybody learned this in biology in school. So like you have a fish that eats something poison and then a human eats that fish and it's a higher concentration of that in our bodies. So it's that same principle. We have to be very careful when we're trying to find plants, making sure that we're getting them from clean environments, low traffic environments. So if you have a dog in your yard and your dog uses the bathroom outside, your yard is probably not the ideal place to get like low shrub plants, light gale of wind, because you have certain plants that only grow at a certain height. But if you have a mango tree in
mhm.
your backyard and you have a dog, that's fine. You just want to make
Okay.
sure like you flip the leaf over. Sometimes you notice you have those little white bugs on the back called aphids. You don't want to use any plants with aphids either unless you know how to really wash them off because aphids release toxins when you boil them in water.
Wow.
And so you just want to make sure that your plants are always super clean, bug-free, bite-free. And then when you're picking your plant, you want to make sure you sort it on site. So don't be like, I'm gonna pick a bunch of plants and then I'm gonna go inside. When you go out to pick, I always have gauze with me and I pick one plant. And when I pick it, I go through all of that one plant to make sure that there's nothing in there that I don't want. Maybe I picked up another plant by mistake. I pick all
Mhm.
of that out. I wrap it up in a gauze. I separate that and I have that set aside. Then I go looking for the next plant that I'm in search of. And I repeat this process. And that's really, really important when it comes to harvesting practices. No bug bites, no high traffic areas, and always make sure you sort on site because you are there with the plant and you can, if you're not familiar, you can be like, like look and make sure because sometimes when you get inside, things can look different.
Yes.
So it's really important to just make sure you handle that right then and there. So those are
Thank
my
you.
extra tips.
Excellent. Those are
And always
three
check
very
with
useful
someone
tips.
first. Always.
Say it one
Someone.
more time.
Always check with someone first who knows. And then I would recommend, there's an app called Plant This.
Okay.
Um, now it is not as accurate as knowing someone because it can give you like a false plant. So you have a lot of plants that look really, really similar, but like one is good for you and one is poison. So
Mm.
I don't want to recommend plant this and you be like, I going out in the bush, I can use plant this and I can pick these plants. It's just as for me as someone, and it's a good way to track like the location where you found the plant. So that's what I
Okay.
use it for. So I'll
Okay.
take a picture of a plant and I know like if I need this plant, I could go back here and find it.
Okay. All right. So it's handy. It's handy
Yeah,
for
so
location
that way you keep
purposes.
track of where you found herbs and like how you can go back and find them, when you found them, you know.
Okay.
And if you have
Excellent.
house plants, it's good for your house plants. Is like if your house plant is dying, you could take a picture of it and be like, you need to give it iron, or it needs more potassium, or whatever. So it's a really helpful app in that way as well. I'm also a house plant lady.
As we can see in the background.
Well, that's nothing.
So we have one more question. I know you had touched on this, but if you can let us know 3 benefits of mango leaf, because Anika says, I have a friend that drinks mango leaf tea. Are there any benefits to it? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, so we talked about this earlier, but mango leaf is really good for hormonal balance. So it's good for the endocrine system. It's also good for inflammation, just throughout the body in general. It's good for diabetes. It helps to dissolve kidney stones, gallbladder stones. And it's actually one of the teas that tastes better. If we're being honest, it's one of the better tasting ones. It's also good for your immune system. It's good to boost your metabolism, but again, mango leaf tea is one thing, and then a mango leaf decantation is another thing, which is what traditional Bahamian medicine is. So you'll always hear me use the term brew. I rarely use infusions there. And see that also this takes time and skill too, because you can like let's say I'm making a brew, right? Some parts of the brew I have to boil, like a decantation. So that's when you take plants, put them in a pot, and you boil it for an extended period of time. Whereas like a tea is just some herbs and you pour hot water over it and you let it steep, and that produces a different effect, right? It's gonna have a different composition as well. So it's all like, it's about how you're taking it in as well.
Excellent. So Anika, I hope that we helped you out, and it sounds like your friend has good taste. If mango leaf tea is one of the better tasting ones, then she is definitely winning with that, and also the health benefits that comes with it. And so I like how you've already started to say how we can incorporate bush medicine into our everyday lives, because we have loved ones, we have family members, especially even our kids, and we want them to be able to enjoy these health benefits. But outside of brewing it, it's like, how do we do it? So you mentioned with the salads, being able to use the leaves for that. Is there a recipe or another suggestion that you can give us?
There is like shepherd's needle. You can prepare it like kale. That's like one of my favorites. I actually don't buy kale anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, so like I eat that on a regular with eggs. My mom likes the sea lettuce. She likes to do hers with like the kale and the shepherd's needle and the sea lettuce. And so, yeah, and my mom has been like so very supportive on this whole journey.
Love that.
And she's always held me accountable because she reminds me that I am trying to run a business. But like I said in the beginning, I am very built off that principle of being like just a community healer. And so I still struggle with that. But I definitely, I would be remiss if I didn't say like my mother and my oldest aunt, my grandmother, who I affectionately call my grandmother, they have been intricate in this process of me learning and growing and just feeling confident in this field. Because I remember when I was doing my phytochemistry course, it got hard. It was hard, okay? And you have to take like module tests. And I remember like the first module test, I got a 65 and I was like devastated.
Aww.
And my mom, she was just so encouraging. She was always like, you can do it. I believe in you. Like, just keep pushing. It'll get easier. Like, this is all new information for you. And once she's like, once you get the hang of it. So she was just always so encouraging. And then like when I'd be slacking off on my online courses, she'd be like, so I haven't seen you on your computer in a couple of days. What's going on with that course?
Mm-hmm.
You can't just get the certificate if you don't finish. Like,
that's right.
so she's always been encouraging. And then my grandmother just always with the new plants. Every time I go by her, like she even like taught me about a lot of edible weeds. So like I was at her house one time and she was like, have you ever heard of parsley? And I was like, no. And she was like, here, eat it. And I ate it and I was like, this is delicious. She's like, I know. And like it's just the and then she's also so proud of me for doing it. Like they both are, because they understand, like the importance of it. And like honestly, this plant that I have tattooed on my forearm, this comb, and it's literally saved like 3 generations of women in my family. Wow. From ovarian cancer, from like extreme fibroid issues, me with my cramping, so like it's something that I hold near and dear to my heart. And I'm rambling again, but yes, there are like shepherd's needles. So when you do cook shepherd's needle, you want to make sure that, I call them the tenderonis. You want to make sure you get the little babies. So not the older the leaves are and the bigger they are, the more fibrous they are going to be, and the like more like fibrous. So it won't be easy to chew. So you want to, this is one of the plants where you do want to get the younger leaves, because the younger leaves aren't bitter. And you cook them down. You still need to add a little bit of water. You could prepare it like how you would prepare kale. I like to do mine with like some sun-dried tomatoes and red onions.
Ooh, sounds yummy.
My mom likes to put, what did she put in hers? She put something else in hers. We both make it like different ways, but all delicious. It's also good in omelets. It's really good. Like any way that you would use spinach or kale is a good way to use shepherd's needle.
Yummy. That sounds great. Thank you for that. So Mykah, we have heard so much about everything that you are doing, and we're proud of you as well. I understand the importance of having a support system. So I'm so thankful that you have your mom and your grandmother at your side rooting for you.
Yes,
and most importantly, they know how important this is to you. And so they're like, keep going. We believe in you. And you are making a difference. Whether you believe it or not, you are making a difference through what you're doing. And so we had Anna Wilson Smith.
That's my mommy! Oh, that's my mommy!
That's your mommy.
Oh, she said red peppers. That's what she puts in it.
Awesome. And I love red peppers. Out of all of the bell peppers, I just find red peppers to have like this distinct taste. I don't know if it's sweetness or something.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah,
I go really hunting for those. Great tip. Mom. Perfect. So what is next from Mykah? We want to know what is next from Mykah and Last Island Gal.
Well, I still think right now I am trying to get away from the product line.
Okay.
Just because I do realize like my products help people, And so I'm trying to like get it more in stores, and like I do like collaborative products for like boutique hotels. So like I'll make a special, like for example, La Bougainvillea. I have recently made some products from them, and they sent me some of the bougainvillea from their estate that I
Wow.
infused into the into the oil that I made the body polish and the creams with for them. And so I really enjoy doing stuff like that because I am a creative. So I love the opportunity to be creative. So
Right.
I'm really looking into doing more stuff like that. Hopefully, I can break my way into like the yachting industry and get some products on yachts and stuff like that. More like standard orders instead of having to invest so much time in like doing pop-ups and all this other stuff.
Shocking. Yeah.
So I'm looking into that. I mean, honestly, it's starting. So thank God for that. I also realize that I have a lot of knowledge to share. And so I'm about to launch my first online course.
Yay.
It's a 6-week course that I call Caribbean Herbalism 101. So it gives you everything like that we talked about today, but in a much more detailed way. So like the first week we talk about the socio importance of ethnomedicine. We talk about how slavery impacted ethnomedicine and how we relate to it. We talk about all the
Mm.
different tribes that came in. So the Fulani, the Hausa, the Mandingo, all these different tribes and their herbal practices in Africa and how they brought those and integrated that along with the native Arawak Indians and the way that they use medicine, and how we now have like this pseudo medicine. We talk about like the 3 realms of spirituality in the Bahamas: Christianity, Obeah, and spirits of the dead. We talk, so that's all of that is like the first week. Then the second week we'd be learning about herbs. What is an herb? What are phytochemicals? What are the different types of phytochemicals? And we just continue from there, and then we learn about like different plants for each body system. So it really gives a full understanding of what Caribbean herbalism is, how you can get started. I give, advice on practices, best practices when
Nice.
harvesting, how to harvest. And then yeah, I'm really excited for that because this is like my first one. So I really want to get more into education because I realize that I'm a good teacher. I make knowledge understandable for the person with the PhD to the person with no GED.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I'm very grateful to God for that gift. And so I realized that my passion and everything that I know can't just be transmitted through a product. I
Yeah.
need to share information so that this tradition can live on. I My main goal is to transmit the understanding that it is sacred and it's not to be taken advantage of monetarily. Because I think a lot of times, especially living in a capitalistic society and the way things are now, a lot of things that were once revered aren't anymore. And I
Mm-hmm.
really want people to understand the importance of, you can't honor bush medicine without honoring the people who carry that knowledge, and that is the older people. And
Yes.
so I really hope that through educating, I can increase respect not only for our environment and for our culture, but for our elders and all the wealth of knowledge that they hold.
Excellent. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for that, Mykah. We wish you all the best with that
Thank you
course.
so much for having me.
You're welcome. You have shared so much with us tonight, and you are so correct. The education is really what's going to create that ripple effect, and the fact that you understand that you can do so much more with that, and you've already started just through the questions that you answered tonight. That's going to have an effect, those you have helped before and those to come. So we thank you for recognizing that. Wish you all the best with your course. I know the interest and the demand is definitely out there. There shouldn't be any worries. I'm glad to know that, this is just the beginning. You have a course now, but you're going to be doing more when it comes to education. So
Yes.
thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
that.
Thank you.
Mykah, you have reminded us of the deep Bahamian roots that lie within Bush medicine tradition and how much it needs to be preserved and passed on throughout generations. You also touched on a level of integrity that we have to have when it comes to handling the plants, selecting the right ones, going into the right areas, and connecting with the right person so that we understand the health benefits of it and if this is right for our bodies. We're also thankful for the tips that you have provided and understanding the unique benefits of each one and also how it helps the female body with PCOS, which is something that so many women throughout the Bahamas are dealing with. It's not usually talked about, but it's good to know that this is something that can help them to find a source of relief and restoration. To learn more about Mykah's upcoming course, find out a lot more. We got a sample tonight. You can find out a lot more and be a part of the movement that gets to know more about Bahamian bush medicine. You can contact her at 242-819-1242 and also at thelastislandgal@gmail.com. And of course, stay updated. You can follow her Instagram page at Last Island Gal. As a reminder, this episode is proudly sponsored by Amber L. We thank the audience for watching, and if you are just tuning in, you can watch the full episode on the Authentically Michelle Facebook page. A very special thank you to Mykah Smith, our guest speaker, for giving us a healthy recipe on ways that we can incorporate bush medicine into our everyday lives, including that Spanish time, and ways that we can share it with our family and friends. We wish you, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I would just want to throw this in there. So my mom and I recently started another business called the Island Forager. So basically, it's a food-based business where we will be making recipes for sale with different plants.
Nice. Awesome. Well, you have to keep us updated on that. We need to know more. This is changing the perspective of bush medicine and helping us to understand that we don't have to only drink it. We can eat it and we can enjoy it in other ways.
For sure.
So I invite everyone to watch the full episode, follow this page for more updates, and tune in next week for another episode of Vibration, where we raise your frequency and amplify your truth. See you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.